the government, as Lady Hell mentioned before, has a responsibility to deliver a legal aid system. and so when it's one thing for the government to suggest, okay, well, it should be for the professions to try and regulate remuneration and make sure that people are paid, but at the same time, for it to spend millions of pounds each year on paying lawyers who represent the government considerably more than the fees that they suggest that legal aid lawyers justify. Legal aid lawyers also save a lot of money in terms of the actual system, and we rely on the government, particularly those of us doing publicly funded work, to pay our fees. And they don't do that very often and for long periods of time. And that brings hardship. When you're having to travel miles around the country to try and bring justice to others, it makes it very difficult. And I think that they don't appreciate the cost of practice, the cost for owners of firms to try and make sure that they can pay their staff and trainees to try and deliver what is essentially a public service. So if what they pay their lawyers is what they believe lawyers should be paid, then why is it the fact that we may practice in legal aid mean that we're any less able and don't deliver as equal a service, and we shouldn't be paid fees which are consistent with the quality that we provide?
Yes, I was reading those very words today, and I find them a surprising washing of the hands of a very important point, and particularly when you bear in mind that over recent history in government purchasing, it's been quite a thing with government purchasing that before they purchase from a major supplier, they will want to take into account their equal opportunities policies and all this kind of stuff. I just don't get it.
One of the things we recommended in the Commission's report was that the government does a social mobility impact assessment, which is something it doesn't do at the moment on anything, but when it has new policies, it should do an impact assessment in the way it would do other types of impact assessments, so we can understand what it will do.
It's about 20 years since legal aid rates went up in line with inflation. They used to go up in line with inflation every year, and we expected it. And about 20 years ago, they stopped doing that. And actually, rates are now lower than they were 20 years ago. And I remember getting very aerated about this and having a conversation with somebody at the Legal Services Commission. You know, this isn't fair. And what he said was, it's our job to pay as little as we can for the service. As long as you guys go on doing it, we will go on keeping the rates down. The reason that they're not paying you more is because you'll do it for what you're getting. And the only thing that is going to make a difference, you're quite right, they do have an obligation to run a legal aid service. The only thing that's going to make a difference is when there aren't enough lawyers to do it at the rates that they're paying. That's not, you know, just the coalition. It was exactly the same under Labour, and it would be exactly the same if Labour were in now. I understand what you're saying about the sort of the gross unfairness of it and the irresponsibility of it. But that's the thinking behind it. If they can get away with paying less, then they'll pay less.